Hello everyone, and welcome to the first video of my first channel. I hope you enjoy it. What I'm going to be doing on this channel is making short documentary style videos on a bunch of random topics that I find interesting. So let's get started. Medieval Europe was a wild place. For hundreds of years, European countries including France, Italy, and Switzerland put dogs, pigs, rats, grasshoppers, and a bunch of other animals on trial. These animals were sent to court for two reasons in general. Number one, for maiming or killing a human, and two, for disrupting the farming practices of the area that they're in. I mean, you gotta blame something, right? Anyways, here are some examples of what the animals did and what their punishment was. As expected, more often than not, the animal was unable to successfully defend itself in court and was convicted. Sometimes the punishment was quite severe, as in the case of a female pig who in 1386 in Falaise, France, was convicted of eating a child's head and arms. After being found guilty, the pig was maimed in the head and forelegs before being hung. A side note worth mentioning was that the animals were often dressed in human clothes, both for the trial as well as the execution. That was the case of this particular pig, who was dressed in a man's clothing while she was being hung. Pigs were a common culprit of harming children and being punished for the crime all the way up to the last known pig conviction in 1864. This occurred in modern-day Croatia, where a pig was executed after being found guilty of biting the ears off an infant girl. The court also levied a heavy fine on the family so that the girl will be able to use it as a future dowry in order to find a husband. One final case revolving pigs that I found interesting was the conviction of a herd of pigs in Saint Marcel, Jersey, France in 1379. In this particular case, 3 pigs from the herd killed a young boy. Not only were those pigs arrested, the rest of the herd was as well for being accomplices. According to bystanders, the way the herd of pigs had hastened to the scene of the murder, and with their cries and aggressive actions, showed that they approved of the assault. Eventually, the Duke of Burgundy pardoned the rest of the pigs, aside from the 3 who were put to death, as killing all of those pigs would have placed a large financial burden on the town. This next story might be even more surprising than the rest. In 1474, a chicken who was thought to be a rooster laid an egg and was immediately prosecuted. Yes, the chicken, who the people at the time thought was a male, thought was a rooster, laid an egg and was sent to court. Anyways, the chicken quickly lost the judicial proceedings and was sentenced to be burned alive for the heinous and unnatural crime of laying an egg. So essentially, they misgendered the chicken and burned it alive for not looking how a chicken was supposed to look. Quick side note, it's fascinating how society has changed so much over the centuries. I mean, we can look back and think that these animal trials are crazy or weird or inhumane, I'm sure some people might say. But for our ancestors, they were a common occurrence and a normal part of society, which makes me wonder how much of our society would actually be similar to that of our ancestors, if there's anything at all that we share with them, and if so, what that might be. If you guys have any thoughts, please drop a comment. I'm curious to see what people have to say. Now for a really modern story, on June 5th, 2019, Katya the brown bear was released from jail after serving a 15-year sentence alongside the other roughly 730 human inmates. She was mistreated and abandoned by circus performers as a cub and locked up in a cage near a camping site as a tourist attraction. After a little boy wandered too close to the cage, she reached out and mauled his leg, leaving him with serious injuries. He was fortunate to survive. The same year, a drunken man named Victor, 28 years old, tried shaking hands with the bear and was mauled. He survived and even wins the first ever Darwin Award on this channel. Once again, congratulations to Victor for being an idiot trying to shake hands with a bear. Anyways, she was sent to prison as nowhere else could be found for her, under a sentence of life imprisonment, but through animal rights activist efforts was released and is now in a small zoo in the north of Kazakhstan. This next story takes place in 1750, where a Frenchman, Jacques Ferron, was caught doing the deed with a female donkey. He was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging. Surprisingly, however, the court found the donkey innocent and labeled her as a victim who had not participated of her own free will. Apparently, this was not the usual case for the animals in these sorts of cases back in the day. However, this female donkey was found innocent largely due to the fact that a human who was acquainted with her submitted documents on the 19th of September 1750 attesting to her virtuous nature and labeled her as a most honest creature. On the bright side for some of these animals, they were all provided representation in the courts, although it rarely did them any good. That was not the case in 1522 when Bartholomew de Chesnus successfully defended rats who had eaten the people of Burgundy's barley stores. This skyrocketed his fame, leaving him as one of the leading French jurists of the 16th century. This is how he did it. When the rats didn't show up to court on the first day, not a great move if trying to project your innocence, Bartholomew presented a motion saying that the rats in absentia without posting adequate notice was unlawful of the court. Essentially, his argument was that they didn't show up because the single announcement couldn't possibly reach all areas of the land where pockets of the mice reside. The court agreed, and for weeks afterwards, the announcement of the trial was heard from every pulpit of every church in the area. Once again, the rats didn't show, and this time he raised another objection, stating that according to law, the court must provide each defendant safe passage to court, and the rats couldn't accomplish this with the many deadly assassins lurking around every corner, also known as cats. The court gave up after this argument, and the trial was either terminated or the rats were acquitted because the court couldn't possibly enforce a ban on cats throughout the day. So Bartholomew won and became very famous throughout this case. Anyways, that is it for today. If you liked the video, please let me know in the comments. If you didn't like the video, also let me know in the comments. Any constructive criticism is appreciated so that I can improve. Have a great day.